Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the 5th session in our Realtor Revolution series, Rise of the Apps, Building Your Dream Tech Stack for Real Estate Success, presented by Residential Realty Today and sponsored by Boomtown. I'm Rayvon, the webinar coordinator of Residential Realty Today, and I'm thrilled to bring you this new session packed with well-earned knowledge on creating a winning tech stack. I'm really looking forward to speaking today with Trey Willard and Daniel Woodson in what I'm sure will be a fascinating and amusing conversation. As a reminder, we are recording today's session in case you have to leave early. If you missed any of the episodes in this series, you can go to the series landing page to access them. We will be sending the series page link to the chat box right now. Up next, before we go further, I do want to thank Boomtown for sponsoring this series and helping us to make it happen. Boomtown has all the tools, technologies, and teams you need for real estate success. It's the only solution that generates and manages your leads with 300 plus experts who have your back. Lead generation, consumer-facing websites, CRM technology, lead management services, and more come in flexible packages that scale with success. Boomtown's mission is to make real estate agents successful, and their service offerings extend far beyond technologies. These services include peer coaching support and lead qualification services to help you contact, qualify, and nurture leads. They also have a dedicated set of advisors that offer personalized support at every step, from onboarding and training to optimizing your business and planning for strategic growth. To learn more about how Boomtown can help your business, visit boomtownroi.com. Thanks again, Boomtown. Up next, let's go ahead and get some technical things out the way. Please feel free to ask questions during today's session. You can do so by submitting them into the questions panel on the right side of your screen. Lastly, don't forget to stick around until the end of our session to get even more fresh insights from Trey and Daniel during our Q&A portion here. My wonderful colleague Lacey will be fielding your questions today. She'll be happy to answer anything you might have. So pull up the questions panel and say hello to let her know that you're listening. Lastly, if you have any audio issues during today's presentation, you may choose to dial in by phone. You can do so by selecting the More button in the upper right portion of your screen and then select the Switch to Phone option. Up next, today we will be hearing from top real estate professionals, Trey Willard and Daniel Woodson. I am so excited for today's session that I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. Daniel and Trey, take it away.
All right, Trey, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, Trey Willard. I am the team leader, CEO of the W Group with Keller Williams Realty Premier Partners in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So, if you guys have any referrals in the Baton Rouge, Louisiana area, we'd obviously love an opportunity. I was licensed in October of 2010, so I'm actually almost celebrating my 12th year in the business, and I've ran the gamut of being an assistant for a top producer in town, became a buyer's agent my very first year, sold 36 houses, was rookie of the year with Keller Williams. I was on that team for about 2.5 years, and then moved over to another brokerage where I was a solo agent from 2012 until 2016. And then in 2016, we started the W Group, which at the time it was my wife, it was myself, and we had one assistant, and we've grown the business now. Daniel, how many agents are we up to now?
Yeah, so we're up to 26 in Baton Rouge, and then the expansion team on top of that.
Yeah, so 26 agents in our Baton Rouge office. We've got an expansion with 2 expansion partners in Lafayette. We have 4 or 5 in Mandeville, Covington, and then we have 5 in the New Orleans metro area. So expanding and growing, that's really kind of been our vision here within the last year. So Danny, you want to go to our production over the last? So yeah, let's go back. We'll take a step back really fast to talk about our core values. So one of the things that we're incredibly diligent on are our core values, and the very first one, embrace discipline and accountability. The second one is being growth oriented, act with integrity. Number 3, and of course, teamwork, incredibly important. And then we're constantly looking to create raving fans. And then Daniel, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell them who you are, and tell them about our production over the last several years.
Yeah, sounds great. Hey everyone, so excited to join you guys today. My name is Daniel Woodson. I'm the operations director with Trey in the W Group with Keller Williams. I've been with Trey and team for about a year now. I did a little bit of real estate before that. I had a side business that I opened doing some fix and flip homes. So I did fix and rehab on 3 homes in the Georgia and Atlanta area. That was really fun. You know, it was definitely a learning experience, you know, buying foreclosed homes on the courthouse steps and, you know, figuring out from there, you know, how to ultimately turn that into a marketable property to try to make a little bit of profit on this fix and flip. So I definitely learned a lot there. And then being a part of the W Group has been awesome. Before I joined the W Group, I worked at Geico for about 12 years. Straight out of college, I worked there, and I served in a lot of different leadership roles. My last 7 years with Geico, I was a director of sales and service operations, and I worked in several offices across the country. I worked in the Georgia office. I worked in general managed the Iowa office, worked a little bit in DC out of the corporate office. So I've had a lot of background, I would say business background in general, but then obviously bringing that to real estate has been really fun. And we'll talk about a lot of the processes and systems that we've integrated with the W Group that I think are helping, and ultimately just sort of bringing some of the things, the Lean Six Sigma processes that we use sort of in the Fortune 500 world to the real estate world. And you know, ultimately everyone knows there's a lot of business to be had in terms of market share in real estate. So really excited to do that with Trey and team. So yeah, to talk a little bit about production. So Trey talked about the company starting in 2016. You can just see closed transactions historically.
Full transparency. 2016, I was a solo agent. I had an assistant. 2016, I personally did 113 units, which was several units were out of a development. I think I had probably 50 or 60 of those units that came from sales out of a development. And then, of course, not all things are what you hope they would be. So as you can see, in 2017, we actually took a pretty big dip from 113 units to 89, and that was the least profitable year of my entire life building a team. So if you guys have ever heard, you know, being in the valley of the J curve, I inevitably found myself in 17 in the valley of the J curve, inevitably thinking, hey, we need to build a team. And then I tried to transfer all the value to the agents and try to kind of pull myself out of production, which was a big mistake. And again, we had a pretty rough year. And then in 18 we recovered. And then obviously 19, you know, things started getting a little bit better. And then 2020 during, you know, COVID, we were able to have our best year ever. We sold north of 200. Last year, 334. And this year we're actually pacing, we're pacing 600. So we forecasted 500 at the beginning of the year. That was our goal. And right now we're like I said, we're on track to do probably somewhere between, if not 600, 575. So. And then if you guys look at volume, we're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Our average or median sales price today is $252,000. As a team, we're at 291 to 292,000. So I know in some of your markets the volume seems a little low. We'll probably finish somewhere around 170 million this year. We did just under 91 million last year, and then we kind of sat in that 30 to 40 to 50 range for a little while. So.
Awesome, thanks. And I'm gonna walk through the tech stack that we use. I'm gonna give you guys as many examples as I can. And really, my goal here is, you know, sharing is caring. You know, we all are trying to accomplish the same thing. And so I'm gonna share some of the things that we do. Feel free to jump in on the chat and ask questions along the way. We do have the Q&A at the end, as Rayvon mentioned, but if you see something on a slide, I share an example, I talk through some automation and you want to talk a little bit more about it, throw it in the chat, and Rayvon, if you just stop me along the way, I'm happy to answer those questions along the way. So we'll start with an overview and we'll kind of walk through each one of them, and I'll share as many examples as I can. So our main CRM, obviously Boomtown, love working with Boomtown, servicing our IDX website to bring in pay-per-click leads. Obviously our website generates traffic in and of itself. It's 225propertysearch.com. Obviously generating leads that way and managing all of our lead funnels and lead flows. We use Sisu for our KPI dashboard and task management. I'll share a lot of slides on Sisu and what all the cool things it can do. But CallAction, some of you may be using CallAction, some may not be. We've adopted CallAction, I would say 7 months ago, roughly 7-8 months ago. We dipped our toe in the water in CallAction and have had some pretty good results. CallAction can do some very interesting things that I'll share with communication, with automating drips, things like that. But also it's good for lead capture. as well. So just thinking creatively on ways that you can generate leads that don't come with a referral fee. That's always welcome, in our business to generate, to capture leads that are in the market. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Zapier is our integration hub, I would say. Zapier sort of integrates with a lot of these, basically all of these programs: Boomtown, CSU, CallAction, Slack, Command. Zapier is able to communicate with each one of them and sort of write custom codes to do certain actions that automate the job functions that a lot of times are repetitive, that we don't want to spend time on. So we'll talk about that. We have some training tech that we'll talk about. We use Trello for our new hire onboarding training, so I'll share that with you. Team chat, we use Slack. I'm sure a lot of people use Slack. KW Command manages our transaction documents in our Sphere database. And then I also put in here that we, as part of our tech stack, that we do use VirtuDesk VAs. We have 2 VAs, and we'll sort of talk about how they integrate within our workflows. And so let's just go ahead.
Two more I'd add to that, Daniel, too, is we do use MailChimp, and we also have BombBomb for our email newsletters. And then through Command, DocuSign is the inevitably the digital signature company that we use that does work in alignment with Command as well. So those are two additions we do have.
Absolutely. So let's jump in. We'll chat about CSU first. So CSU, I would just say CSU, for those of you who don't use CSU, CSU is what I would consider to be our main KPI scoreboard, in order to share with our team results, how it's going, how our trends look over time. We really start here and kind of give the broad overview. Of course, it breaks down by agent, trends over time, month by month. This is just sort of the team dashboard, and you can see it's got our under contract units, closed units, signed units. I know you don't see the whole screen, but it's got how many appointments that you set, how many appointments that you met, and you can really monitor that conversion funnel to analyze, where are you seeing fallout on your leads? Are you struggling to get appointments that you set to appointments met? Are you struggling to sign once you meet with a client? Are you struggling in the under contract phase? You can really look at someone's funnel to understand the breakdowns to do some targeted training, which I think is really good. The other things that are nice about CSU, it shares with you really where you rank among other teams that use the platform, and we're always looking at that. Are we in the top 20, top 10, comparatively in terms of our appointment rates and things like that. And of course, a lot of that has to do with team size, of course, but it's pretty cool to see that. The other couple things CSU does is CSU is actually a task management system. So not only is it got the KPIs, it's got agent KPIs, it's got team KPIs, but it also it's a support task management software, and we'll talk about that. But basically, you can tell CSU that you want reminders when certain things happen throughout the transaction, and you want those to kick out to your support staff. So our support staff, I'm thinking transaction coordinators. We have 2 transaction coordinators, a listing coordinator. We have 2 VAs. We have a marketing manager, of course, me in operations. We have an admin assistant. What do those people need to do when something goes under contract or when a listing goes live? When key steps are hit throughout the process, CSU can kick out or does kick out tasks, and you can customize those tasks based on what you want the individual to do based on what's happened. And I'll show you guys that, but that's a really nice piece of how we use CSU. Before we talk about that, one more thing about the scoreboard. I think this is something that everyone on the team looks forward to seeing. That they want to know who's on top. We give out a belt every month for the agent who's the top dog, and they get points for each thing they accomplish. And the pieces that we're monitoring here are how many appointments are they setting, how many appointments are they meeting, signing, under contract, closed units. They get points for various tasks that are going to ultimately lead them to the revenue goals, the GCI goals that they want to achieve individually and that we want to achieve as a team. And over the course of the month, it's a constant race, that we have in the top 3, and then we'll give a belt to the top individual. In addition, we've run like team contests off of this and kind of split our agents into teams of 3 or 4 and had the teams compete against each other on similar KPI metrics, and ultimately compete for cash prizes. So we use this for a lot of things. And when you think about how to make the competition and the camaraderie tangible for the agents, I think this is one thing that we really feel strongly that does that, because it really is a visual display of what's happening on a daily basis, and everyone knows that their numbers are going to be out there, and so they don't want to show up at the bottom. They want to compete, for the top prizes. So
And
we
let me,
use that a lot.
I'm going to piggyback on something, Daniel, really fast.
Yeah, go for it.
So another thing that CSU does, and again, we track, and he had mentioned KPIs. So the KPIs that we track are dials, most importantly. So, picking up the phone and actually making the dial, conversations and contacts, right? So did you actually speak to that person? Buyer appointments met and seller appointments are set, and then buyer appointments and seller appointments set and met, and then under contract. And one of the things we do is we do one-to-ones with our agents. I meet with them once a month. Daniel meet with them once a month. And what we do is we have this really cool reporting that'll tell us exactly what their metrics are. So we can see from a metric standpoint, what is their conversion from, how many conversations does it take to actually set an appointment? And then once you set the appointment, 65 roughly percent of the time as a team, we're actually meeting with that person. Or actually it's closer to 70%. And then when we meet with that person, it's somewhere between 55 and 60% that we sign those people. So when we have these, one-to-one accountability calls with our team members, it's the numbers don't lie, right? You can easily go to the reports and you can coach around that. So, is the agent not performing or hitting their goals? Likely it is they're not having enough conversations. They're not going on enough appointments. So that's a really powerful tool that we use CSU for is our accountability process.
100%, absolutely. That's exactly right. And if you don't have that data, if you're not tracking that data and you don't have historical context, it's really hard to have that. You can make guesses or you can have conversations and speculate, but the numbers, like to Trey's point, don't lie. I do want to give you guys another kind of view of CSU, and this is the task management part. And so this is just an example of our task management outline when an agent puts something under contract and it goes pending. And this is fully customizable, and you can say, okay, hey, when it goes under, on the day that something goes under contract in CSU, you want to kick out to the agent to remind them they have 48 hours to turn the file in or to update their documents in command. This can be totally customizable to whatever your process is, whatever you want it to be. And we have this built out for every process that we manage throughout the closing process or the under contract process. And it really just helps make sure that everyone knows what they need to do in order to close out a file and close it out in a compliant way. So CSU, KPI scoreboard, task management software, it's to Trey's point, it really helps with the one-on-one coaching. There's a lot of things that CSU does that I feel like makes the competition and the camaraderie within the office tangible. And that's really, Trey talked about it when he talked about the environment and the core values that we have. When people come in and they're looking at scoreboards and they're looking at numbers and they're seeing how they rank and compare, it creates a whole different feel in the environment than if we didn't have those things. Last thing I'll mention on tracking everything. So I also, put together like our Zillow metrics, and I kind of send an email out to the team at least once a week just to let them know, where they stand from a Zillow metric standpoint. And, we rank and track and measure each one of these KPIs and send it out so that everyone knows, where are the top metrics on appointment set, appointment met, conversions, and answer rate as it relates to our Zillow calls as well. All right, so let's jump a little bit further into our tech stacks. That was an overview of CSU. I'm gonna walk through the rest of the tech stack in a little bit of a different way. I'm gonna walk through it and give you guys an idea of where are all of our lead sources. What are all of our lead sources and where are they coming from, and how do they integrate within Boomtown to kick off certain automations, and we'll just sort of talk through it. I think the way to visualize it is in this way, so you can kind of get an idea of all the different lead sources that we have coming in, and then how we automate in each one of these segments. And I think it can give, because everyone has different lead sources, but we might talk about a few that impact you and your business that could be helpful. So overall, we have Boomtown as a lead source, CallAction, Zillow. We have some other lead sources. We use Vulcan 7 for SBO and expireds. Of course, our sphere of influence and social media direct contacts. So within Boomtown, obviously our Boomtown paid leads, we get Google organic searches, we get Facebook leads and ads that we do through Boomtown. CallAction is interestingly, I would say probably one of the better features of CallAction is that you can generate leads via CallAction through different campaigns. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you a few examples. So Google My Business, we have a specific number that we've created within CallAction that we put on our Google My Business page. And so when those calls come in to that number, it's actually a CallAction number. It feeds into CallAction, it transcribes the conversation, and it updates Boomtown and puts the customer into our Boomtown as a lead. It puts the transcript of the phone call, and it assigns out that lead to whoever answered the phone from a Google My Business standpoint. So again, that's lead capture. Same thing with Google LSA. LSA is just the local service ad, but it kind of works in a very similar way as Google My Business. Text for info. So this is a newer one for us that we've implemented, but on all of our listing signs now, we have a text for info line. I actually didn't put a picture in here. I probably should have of the sign, but basically at the top of our sign listing signs, they have a text for info line, and it says text 110 to this number that's like very easy for people to remember. It's like a 225 area code and then a lot of consecutive similar numbers so they can easily remember it. And anyway, when they text that info to us, that's also lead capture because it communicates with Boomtown. It puts the customer in there as a lead. It uses caller ID to identify who the person is, puts their phone number in there, and then it assigns that lead out because of course that's a listing that we have that's now generating business because it's a potential buyer that now we're going to turn in and represent them as a buyer client. And most times they're texting us, they're interested in that property, but we end up looking at other properties that better meet their needs, and it ends up turning into a transaction that we generated and netted without, there's no referral fee on that, and we just netted it because we owned the listing. And it's very similar, of course, to having a realtor put their number on there, but how many times do you miss a call from a potential buyer who's calling? How easy is it for you to manage all those phone calls of those buyers, and how easy is it for you to organize all that? Do you want to go in there and manually put all that into your CRM? Not really, so this automates it, so it makes it where all the buyers that come by our listings automatically go into our Boomtown and parse out to our team in a very systematic way where we can't lose sight of them. Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. So we've done some testing here, and again, this is free lead gen. So we created a specific number that customers can call or text that we put on listings that we post on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. And it's just another place where you can put your listing. And if the person goes on there and contacts us either via text or phone call, again, that's automatically connected back to our Boomtown, generates a lead, no referral fee. All those are free leads, no marketing expense, no nothing. So I love all the lead. I think that's the most beneficial thing CallAction can do for you, even though it's got a lot of cool features on communication, is free lead capture. That's huge. Zillow Premier, everyone knows, Zillow and how it works generally. Either you're going out there paying or you're getting the phone calls or whatever. From a Zillow's perspective, all that's works with Boomtown very, very well. We get Opcity leads through Realtor.com, Sold.com. You guys are probably familiar there, and we'll talk through a little bit these in a little bit more detail here on the next few slides. Okay, so I color coordinated all this based on the integration that they have with Boomtown. So the green represents native API automatic integration that's super streamlined, super seamless. So Boomtown, obviously perfectly integrated, Google, organic, Facebook, all that's perfectly integrated. There's basically nothing that we have do to make that work. CallAction is inherently integrated. Like I said, all calls are transcribed, all texts are also added to the notes in Boomtown, so you don't have to worry about, what was the communication or what did we talk about with customers on CallAction, because it automatically uploads into Boomtown for you. And again, that just saves time from having to look back and forth between two systems. Zillow is obviously perfectly integrated with API. The ones in yellow require a little bit more manual work. So this is where we use Zapier, um, we use the email parser. So if you guys aren't familiar, in Boomtown, there's an email parser tool where if you send an email to your specific Boomtown email address that captures leads, it's a lead capture parser through Boomtown. It will add a client to your Boomtown as a lead for you. So like in Zillow, when you get a call, it automatically puts the lead in there. There's no, that's a native integration. But as an example, OpCity, it does not have a native integration with Boomtown. So in that case, what we're doing is we're using Zapier to take the email that we get that says, hey, Trey, you have a new lead. It's Mary Turner. Here's her phone number. Here's what she called about. We take that email and we use Zapier to forward that email automatically to the Boomtown email parser. And that email parser will upload that person as a lead in Boomtown and assign it to the right individual. And again, that's us. That's why it's in yellow, because that's us using Zapier to create automation that isn't inherently built into Boomtown or OpCity, but we're using Zapier to connect those two programs together seamlessly without agents having to intervene. So those are in yellow because it requires some extra steps, and I'll show you some examples here in a minute. The ones in red, of course, sphere deals, past clients, referrals, things that just come directly to the agent. They're manually putting those into Boomtown. So I put those in red, but there's really no automation you need for that. If you're new to a sphere deal, they can manually put that person in their Boomtown and keep it moving. Okay, so let's get into a little bit more detail about our automation. So I'm going to go lead source by lead source and share with you some of the automation that we built in and how it works, so that you can get your head wrapped around that automation and see if anything is beneficial to you and your teams. Okay, so this is Boomtown. We talked about the Boomtown pay, Google and Facebook lead sources via Boomtown. So it's natively integrated, so we talked about that. When the lead comes in automatically into Boomtown, we use Zapier to automatically push that client's information into CallAction. Okay, the reason we do that is because we use CallAction to do automated calls, automated texts, automated drips. We have a lot of follow-up processes built into CallAction that are very personalized. You can use emojis, you can use video text, there's a lot of different cool features, and the response rates we were getting in CallAction, our average engagement rate when we communicate with a customer in CallAction is 45%. So half the time we reach out to a customer, and these are any customer, any lead source, 45%. That's really, really strong. But the reason it's strong is because we're calling them, we're leaving a ghost call where it shows a missed call on their phone. It also leaves a voicemail with our realtor's the name, phone number, that it's their voicemail recording. We're leaving that on the customer's phone. We're texting them as if we are the agent with personalized language that we developed with our team. So it sounds like us, it feels like us, it feels human, it doesn't feel robotic. And I'll share that with you in a minute. So 45% is huge when it comes to lead conversions, because if you're not getting people to engage with you when you're reaching out to them, how are you gonna close deals? So we talked about the phone calls, we talked about the voicemails, we talked about the text. So we use all that to start a conversation and engage the client. 45% of them respond. So once they respond, you can see that it then goes into a pool of clients that have now responded to us. And by the way, the agent hasn't done anything. The agent has literally done nothing, but the lead has come in and we've automatically started the communication in a very personalized way, and 45% have responded. Now our two virtual assistants jump in and engage / nurture the client. And I'm going to share that with you. The agent does jump in sometimes depending on what's happening, that the agent sees what's happening, but a lot of times the VAs are the ones nurturing, because a lot of times the clients have questions. They're just looking, they want to know things that a VA can answer. And so we just, our speed to lead is huge. We don't want techs to be sitting around a long time. So the VAs jump in and help nurture those leads and engage them. And ultimately the agents see that conversation, the agents jump in, and also the VAs reach out to the agents like, hey, we got this hot lead, they're ready to go see a home. Let's get out there and get an appointment set. So they'll also text the agent if they're not responding quickly enough or they don't see it or something like that, and it's a hot lead that's sitting there. In addition, we set up drips. So if a client, the 55% that don't respond to us, we don't just leave them out there. We have drips that go, e-alerts that go, and the VAs all set that up to, again, it allows our agents to scale their business and do more business with less time-consuming, tedious tasks. All right, so let me share some examples. So what does this look like? Okay, so you can see this is an example of a Boomtown lead that came in to us. It was a paid per click. Okay, so it's through our IDX website. They registered, they filled out the registration card, and then Zapier. You can see there at the top left it says parsed Zapier contact data. That just means that Zapier has sent the information from Boomtown to CallAction automatically. Okay, because this lead registered on July 6th at 5:37 p.m. So automatically Zapier kicked it over to CallAction. And when it did that, Zapier also assigned for CallAction to start making the calls, the text, and the voicemails. So you can see that Zapier assigned the script. So the script was assigned automatically. And then within about 20 to 25 minutes or 23 minutes, like it's dialed in where it's not, these things are not happening on the hour, they're very personalized. So they don't look like they're automated. So they happen at weird times, if that makes sense. But it only happens between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So we're not doing this after hours. Again, it's all dialed in so it sounds and feels very personal. And so you can see that in this case, it was 5:37. So we reacted same day. So within about 15 minutes, 17 minutes, we made the first call. So it did a call from Aaron's phone, and it showed as a missed call from Aaron's number. And it left a voicemail, and I can't play it on here, but it's Erin's voice, and it's her, and she's saying, hey, I just saw you were checking out our website. I was reaching out to touch base with you, just wanted to chat. Either call or text me back. I'll reach out to you later. Basically, it's that kind of language. And then it follows up with a text. Good evening, it's Aaron with the W Group. Saw you were checking out some properties. How soon are you looking to be in your new home? Okay, this was all tailored based on our agents' feedback. They really thought that was a good lead into the conversation, is asking them their timeline. Try to ask an open-ended question that's not just a yes, no. And we get, like I said, 45% response. So in this case, you can see Brendan said, hi, Aaron, we're looking to move around the end of this year, or we're at the very beginning of our search. Okay, so this is very consistent. This is very normal. This is half the time, this is kind of what we get. And so at this point, the VA gets this information. They see what's happening. And in this case, since the timeline is the end of this year, the VA is going to follow up and ask some additional questions. They're going to find out, how many beds, how many baths, what area, what price range. Let's help us hone in on your search. And that once they gather that information, they're going to pass it off to Aaron, so Aaron can do the search and present the homes to the client and say, hey, look, I got 3 or 4 homes. They meet your criteria. Let's go set an appointment. And so that's generally the gist of how this works. Now, when the client responds, CallAction automatically pauses. So there's nothing else that will happen to this client, because CallAction has done its job. CallAction has engaged the client, and we've done so in a timely way that blocks out any other realtor. So now that we're engaged in the conversation, CallAction backs away and says, my job is done. And the agent / VA jumps in and runs from here. Now, if we want to reassign a drip and say, hey, let's follow up with this person in 3 months, you can do that, and then CallAction will follow up in 3 months. No big deal. But in this case, we would probably, figure out what homes they're looking for and set up the appointment to go start searching for homes. So that's the gist of how that's set up. Again, everything here is automated until the customer responds. We're trying to create a system and a process for everything where we're more of an inbound lead center, and not so much cold outreach that that takes time and doesn't have as good a response rate as what we get in CallAction.
I have a great question coming in here from Tessanella.
Yeah.
And this is really looking at the dispersal management part. She says, how many hot leads and new leads would you say each agent is working with per week? She's just curious about the dispersal management of this.
Yeah. Let's see. So, I'll get to the week. So in a given month, our agents are getting, let's say, between 10 to 15 leads from Zillow, and they're getting about 10 leads from our website IDX leads. So let's see, in a given month, you're talking, let's just call it 20 to 25. So in a given week, you're talking about maybe 5, 6, 7 new leads from our website and Zillow. So that's probably pretty average. Now we have some of the other lead sources like CallAction that will add a few more on top of that, but that's probably pretty average. Does
Great
that
question.
answer?
Absolutely. That was a great question, Tessanella. If you do have any follow-ups, go ahead and put those into the chat. And a big reminder to everyone else, go ahead and get your questions in if you do have questions along the way here.
And that actually made me think of something else as well. Just keep in mind that, you know, if you're generating, let's just call it 25 new leads every month, well, that's 75 every quarter, you know, 150 every 6 months, 300 every year. And then you throw on top of that some leads from CallAction and sphere of influence and stuff like that. It doesn't take a long time for you to be in the, you know, several hundred leads in your system. And so our system and process is set up so that leads, the lead nurturing process is circular. Okay, so we should never have a lead fall out of our circular nurturing process, which is the, you know, the CallAction, the drips, the e-alerts, and VA follow-ups, unless the customer opts out, or unless they buy, or unless they say, look, you know, I was just looking for somebody else, but we're no longer in the market. You know, they just basically opt out. Outside of that, you know, if this let's just, as an example, if this customer comes back and says, you know what, I'm going to stop my search right now, but I'm probably going to start it this time next year. So give me 12 months. Well, we might not want to go see houses right now. We might want to wait 6 months to start going to see houses, so the timing is better. So we might tell this customer, look, no big deal. I'm going to make a note on my calendar to follow up with you in about 6 months, and we'll go ahead and chat at that point, and I'll reach out to you and I'll give you a call or shoot you a text. No big deal. Customer says, great. And then we'll use CallAction to set up a follow-up in 6 months. And then it'll be a 6-month follow-up, and then it'll start reaching out to them with calls, voicemails, and texts at that point, spread out until they respond. And then at that point, when they respond, it's the same thing. The agent's jumping in, the VA's jumping in, and boom, now we're right back out there getting the customer in the market to view homes. Whereas I think a lot of agents, if the customer is not going to see homes for 6 months and not going to buy for 12 months, how likely is it that that agent's follow-up is good enough to check in on them 6 months from now and get that sale 12 months from now? My guess is probably not frequently. Okay, let's talk a little bit about CallAction and some of the automation here. So we talked about, we use CallAction as lead capture for Google My Business, Google LSA, Text for Info, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. So in CallAction, when we receive a call from a number from our call, we can create however many phone numbers we want in CallAction, and we can use a number for like a text for info. We use specific numbers for any campaign. So we have one number for Google My Business, one number for Google LSA. It allows us to track our traffic. Okay, so we use it for tracking. A lot of big businesses do that. It's very common. And then we use it for our text for info, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. When the caller text comes in, the native integration pushes that back to Boomtown. Lead is created, we're good there. CallAction, if we talk to the client, CallAction doesn't need to do anything. But if, like, let's say for instance, we get the customer on the line, but the call disconnects, CallAction will jump in and text the client and say, hey, you know, our call got disconnected, or if we miss a call, I was on the other line, you know, how can I help you? And it automatically starts nurturing that client for you. And again, it's all about getting the customer to tell us what's going on to tell us how we can help them so that we can start figuring out how to move that customer forward in the transaction process. And then again, once those leads respond, the VAs are jumping in to engage and nurture, and then they push that back to the agent when it turns into a hot lead. And again, it's just very circular. The leads are captured, VAs jump in, and then agent takes it to the house when they set the appointment. This is an example of our text for info campaign. So again, I wanted to show this to you so you can get an idea of how CallAction generates leads. So in this case, the customer has sent us a text on one of our signs, and they texted the number. In this case, it was listing number 116, and they texted 116 to the number that we provided on the sign. And you can see what it sent back to them. It says for sale, 252 Avenue F, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,300 square feet. And then there's a bit.ly link. The bit.ly, we do not put the price on the text. There's two reasons for that. One, the price could change, and we want to make sure that we have the most accurate price. And then two, we want them to click the link. Okay, we want them to go into the website and see the pictures and engage with the home. Okay, when they click the link, it takes them to our website. They see the pictures. Picture 1, picture 2, picture 3, that they can see as many pictures as they want. It's not going to make them force register or anything because we've already got their information. It's the most seamless process for them because we already know their information. We already know they're a lead. We know their name, their phone number. We don't need to force register them. And then we wait about, I think it's 37 minutes roughly. And then we follow up as if we're the realtor. That's the listing realtor. I mean, we are the realtor, but I'm just saying the text sounds like it's coming from the listing agent. I saw this text come in, just checking to see if the property link worked okay. Did the pics give you what you needed? It's very offhand. It's not a perfect text. You know, everything, the capitalization is not perfect. All that's by design because we want it to sound like an agent was driving from one appointment to the next. They got to the next appointment, saw that this customer texted us and just shot off a text, kind of like firing off the hip. That's how natural conversation happens, and that's how we've programmed CallAction to work. 70% of the time, customers will engage with us. Let me say that again. 70% of the time that a customer dials in for text for info and we start dripping them, they will respond. So not only did they text us for info, but they also engage in a conversation afterwards with a realtor. It's very, very good throughput. And the only people that haven't really responded are the people that we just texted. So I would imagine it'll actually be much higher once it seasons. So this is an example. The person says, yes, thank you. They did see the pictures and we jump in. Now this is the virtual assistant from my account saying, great, did the specs and pics meet what you're looking for? If so, I can get you in the house to see it. So boom, the VA is trying to set up the appointment. The customer says it's beautiful. It's a little bigger than what I was looking for. The VA jumps in, fair enough. Hey, I get it. I want you to find the one that's right for you. What's your price range? Also, this one is in Port Allen, but are you open to other areas too? No, I really want to stay in this area. So now this is a situation where the VA has nurtured the conversation. We know where they're looking. We know how much they want to spend because the house I think was $225,000, and so we know their price point, we know the area, we know what they're looking for. They actually wanted something around 200,000 in the Port Allen area. So the VA sent it over to the agent. Agent reaches out, and the conversation ensues, and they set the appointment up. And so this is again a free lead, no referral fee, lead capture through CallAction, and boom, now this person is a client that we're showing homes to that we didn't know about before we had the sign out there. Okay. So let's keep moving. Zillow Premier is very, very straightforward.
Really quick here, Daniel.
Yeah.
I have a question coming in from Tessanella.
Yeah.
She says, and the text for info is also through CallAction?
Yes. Yes. All this
Thanks.
is through CallAction. So CallAction has a text for info campaign where they and it's all, and I don't have screenshots unfortunately, but CallAction makes it where it's very simple to set up. You program exactly how you want it to work. And you could set up your text for info for anything. You could do text for info signs that you post on like light poles somewhere. You could put it on your listing signs. You could put it on Facebook. You can put it on Craigslist, wherever you want to put it. Yeah, good question. All right, Zillow Premier. So Zillow Premier is obviously native integration, so we won't talk a lot about that, but I did want you to know that we still use Zapier to send the client from Boomtown to CallAction, even though we're talking to this client live. They're telling us what they want, they're telling us what they need, we're setting up the appointment live on the call. But we still use CallAction, we still use Zapier because we don't want that client, we don't want to miss anything on that client. So we send it to CallAction, and CallAction starts a drip campaign that starts 60 to 90 days after the lead comes in, and we're reaching out to them and we're saying, look, this is Daniel from Keller Williams Zillow Premier. We're reaching out to make sure all of our clients had 5-star service. We want to make sure you got everything you need when you contacted us via Zillow. It's basically reaching out because, again, the agent has set up the appointment. The agent has handled their needs, but we're reaching out separately with a different motivation. Our motivation is customer satisfaction. And a lot of times what we find is that the client will say, well, I did look at a few homes, but I was having issues with blank. Maybe I was having issues with financing. Maybe they were having issues with the agent. Okay, does that happen sometimes? Heck yeah, it happens sometimes. Well, I want them to tell me, as the operations director, I want them to tell me that they're not having a good rapport with that agent. Guess what? I'm going to assign them to a peer agent. And are we still going to sell that person a house? Hell yeah. I'm going to sell that person a house still because they're interested. They just have a great rapport with that agent. So I'm going to reassign that lead, as opposed to that person ghosting us and just going to somebody, another broker. Other times customers will say things like, well, it was out of my price range. I was struggling to get pre-approved. Well, now they're opening the door for us to use our preferred vendors and, push preferred vendors that can really work with them on their financing. It opens up a lot of conversations that, 3 to 4 months down the line, the agent might not be able to have with that client. And sometimes they say, yeah, hey, the agent was great, set up the appointment, we're pursuing making offers, and that's fine too. It's just, again, customer satisfaction we're trying to reach. If they respond, the VAs jump in, answer the response, and if it's something and it needs to be pushed back to the agent, like sometimes they'll say, hey, I want to see a different home or something. We'll push that back to the agent, let the agent set that appointment up. Okay. OpCityRealtor.com. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, that it's not a native integration. So in this case, when we get the email from OpCity that says, hey, here's a new lead for you, Zapier forwards that email to Boomtown. Boomtown has an email parser, adds the lead in. We talked about that earlier. And then it starts a drip campaign that's similar to the customer satisfaction drip campaign. And again, we're not trying to overstep on the agent, because we want the agent to be having dialogue about the homes, the specs, and stuff like that. But we do want to have like a safety net. That way, if anything goes wrong with the conversation with the agent, the relationship with the agent, anything, we have a fail-safe, 60 to 90 days out, where the customer can let us know as a liaison that something's not going right and we can fix it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about some separate automations, and I want to leave time for some questions at the end. We also use automation within our Slack. So if somebody puts something under contract, we share that out with the group. So there's an automated Slack message that goes out and it says Ryan D took under contract, and it puts the customer's name and then a little bit of words of wisdom. That way the agents can jump in and celebrate that. So this is just an example of that. Again, we try to use automation anywhere where it makes sense, that we can increase our competition, increase our scalability, anything that we can take off the agent's plates, add value, create competition, and push our sales metrics forward. We're going to use that. And I would just say, if you're really trying to be good with automation, Zapier is an amazing tool, because it communicates with so many different programs that you can basically do anything you want with Zapier. Every program has their own like API integration with other programs, and it's not as polished, but Zapier, I would say, has done a really nice job of getting everything they can out of the automation from every program, and then they bring it into a centralized hub and communicate with, connect programs to each other in a way that really you can't do without Zapier, and it's very inexpensive too for those that want to look into it. I won't spend any time here because we talked about a lot of this. I would just say the only thing that we didn't talk about is our post-close process. So we have automation built in our post-close. Anytime you close out a client, making sure that you're getting a review from them. We have a QR code that pushes them to a review. We push out 36 touches to that individual, within the next 12 months after we sell them a home, so that we can kind of build our sphere of influence. We didn't talk a lot about that, but we do use automation for that as well. Last thing I had on my agenda was the training tech. I want to just share this with you all. There's a lot of different training platforms out there. We've historically used Trello. This is what it looks like. Ours is a 2-week onboarding. It's broken down by day of the week. And each day of the week has, you click on it and it's got different tasks to complete. It's got links, it's got videos, so we send them through the Boomtown videos, Zillow videos, anything that's going to be value add for that individual. We link them to it and use videos and use Trello for that. And then they kind of check mark through it on Trello. I would say we're probably to the point where we're nearly outgrowing Trello. So we might pursue other platforms in the future, but right now Trello works for us for what we are doing, but we're onboarding so many people that we're almost outgrowing Trello because we have several people that try to use it at the same time. So that was it. I know I went through a lot. I was trying to move through it so we could get to the questions. I know we covered a lot, but I also wanted to give plenty of content to kind of spur your mind on things that can be accomplished with technology in the real estate world. Some of this you're already doing, some of this you may not be doing. But with that, Trey and I would love to answer any questions that you guys have.
Absolutely. That was a fantastic presentation. You gave us so much insightful information. Thank you for that. Before we dive into these questions, I do want to remind everyone that now is the great time to get straight from the source insight from Trey and Daniel. Great questions contribute to a great webinar, so don't forget to submit your questions. Additionally, we understand if you need to run, just know that today's session is being recorded and will be emailed to you in the next 48 hours. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into our audience questions. Our first question is coming in from Alex. He says, has your increase in tech automation decreased your need/demand for in-print advertising?
So we want to, I would say no, because we want to be wherever the customer is. So just think about it. Think about marketing in that we want to be omnipresent, as sort of the way Trey describes it. We want to be wherever the customer is. If the customer's on Facebook, we want to be retargeting them on Facebook. Of course, we might have interacted with them in the past, but if we retarget in Facebook, they're going to see us there and say, well, damn, the W group is everywhere. We want them to see us if they search on Google, best realtor in Baton Rouge. So we push our reviews, Google My Business, Google LSA, there's automation all built within that. But that doesn't mean we don't want to be there. The in-print stuff that you mentioned, we use our 36 touch process, which includes mailers. In fact, we're doing LSU keychains right now that we're sending out. There's going to be a cost associated with that, and there's going to be, we're going to direct mail those things because we want them to get something from us that's tangible. We want to be omnipresent. So I would say it has not reduced our imprint. It doesn't mean that it couldn't if we wanted to, save a few bucks here and there, but we ultimately think that being omnipresent and being wherever the customer is helps us with our brand and reputation, so that when they think real estate in Louisiana, they think of us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that, right? So anything print marketing it's really hard to track and measure. We're big on track and measuring anything digital. I mean, we typically get like, here's the amount of impressions. We know who's seeing it. We know what our presence, and our exposure looks like. Now we are getting into, we're going to do some geographic farming, and we're going to start farming. Now that's coming more as not necessarily like, okay, we want to go spend more money. Now we have additional revenue, and right, we know that geographic farming is a great lead source. and we have the resources now with the marketing director and the revenue to support that additional lead source. So we won't
Right.
move that until we're ready and we feel like, you know, we've got the financial commitment, we've got the consistency, we've identified, you know, the geographic farming that we want. But like Daniel said, we send out 4 what we call items of value to our sphere of influence throughout the year. And again, so I mean, where are your clients, right? So we want, you know, some tangible things that they can hold, that they can touch, that they can feel. Obviously, they need to see us, you know, our newsletters. We're calling them, you know, at least a minimum of 4 times per year. They're getting home evaluations from us through Command, through like a neighborhood drip campaign. So yeah, we don't do as much of the imprint, but we definitely think it is important.
Yep, no doubt. Yeah, the
Absolutely.
geofarming is actually gonna be really cool. We're gonna target specific neighborhoods and specific areas that have really good price points that we're doing some business in, and really saturate those areas. So we like Trey said, we haven't got there quite yet, but that's something that, again, it's like if you're not doing some of the easy stuff right, you know, your Google, your online presence stuff, if you're not doing those things right, you got to start there. But we're to the point now where the automation is helping us free up a little bit to start thinking more creatively about the things that we're not doing, like geofarming. And so I think technology is doing things to free us up more than anything. It's not taking anything off our plate per se, but free us up to get more creative.
Thank you so much for that fantastic answer, and I really appreciate that question there, Alex. Moving on to this next question here, because we do have a couple more to get through before we close out today. It's coming in from Paul. First, he says you have an incredibly impressive tech stack there. And with that, and you kind of mentioned this in your past answer, talking about the cost a little bit. So what kind of cost should you be thinking about if you're trying to build a tech stack like this? Is there a big cost to you and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, each platform definitely, you know, has a cost. You know, Sisu, I'm thinking about Boomtown, Sisu, and CallAction is probably the main ones that we talk through here. There's creative ways to do it. I would say you can implement this technology in a way that doesn't increase the cost as much. There's a way to use this technology and have pretty extensive costs because you have tons of users and stuff like that. Or you can implement it and you know, really kind of do like a one user system. So there's different ways to do it. I would say it's not cost prohibitive at all. It's just a matter of setting it up in a way that gives you enough return to justify any expense that you have. And so I would just say if you are a smaller team, you know, just figuring out a way to do it without having tons and tons of users is going to save you a lot of cost. So each system will allow you to customize it to make it where the cost doesn't get prohibitive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and another thing is you can leverage some of your vendor relationships, which is something we've done. You know, we send a lot of business to our lenders and our title companies, and you know what I mean. You know, these are RESPA laws that are in place, and these are legitimate, right? That they can pay a portion of these systems. You know, if it's obviously check with your laws and regulations with your local, you know, real estate community. But we've leveraged some of our vendors to help us out with some of those costs as well. So something to consider.
Yeah, and something Sisu does a really good job of is helps us track which vendors we're using on our transactions so that we can understand where we're sending the majority of our business. And so again, that just helps build those relationships. So those are things that you definitely want to have good insights to in your business.
It's a great answer. Definitely tracking the different options that you're using to see how successful you are. Thank you for that answer there. For our last question, this one is coming in from one of our audience members. She wants to know if you guys know how KV Core compares / differs from KW Command. If you have any insight on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a lot. I wouldn't compare KV Core to KW Command. KW Command is we're with Keller Williams, right? So part of our process that we have to follow right through compliance, there's a process that we use KW Command for. Now, KW Command is what we use, and we try to split our databases in 2 different forms. So like you have your past client and sphere of influence database, that we typically use for Command, because there's some things that Command does that's pretty cool, with some integrations with MailChimp and different things, right? And then Boomtown, which is where we keep all of our lead generation. So anything that's let's call it a haven't met. So I'd look at, like, KW, we talk a lot about have mets and haven't met. So the people we know, they like us, they trust us, they typically end up in the KW Command, where the leads end up over here. Now, KV Core is exactly what Boomtown is, in the sense of it's got an IDX website that you can funnel traffic to. They register on your site. It creates forced registration. They have a back-end CRM that you can start different campaigns. Now, I'm so far removed from KV Core. I've been with Boomtown now since probably, I'd say, somewhere between 2015 and 16, or maybe even 14. And just, again, Boomtown has different levels. I mean, if you're just like a one-man show and you want a nice CRM with a IDX website, Launch is a product that they have for like the single to 2 user. Then they go up to what's called Core, which is probably like your 3 to 4 to 5 users, and then you can get to Launch, or Growth, excuse me, which is their big platform, which has a lot more of the integration. So depending on where you are and depending on what you want to spend, there's different options. But KV Core, it can do, I would imagine, again, forgive me because I'm not really sure, but I would imagine it can do a lot of the same things that Boomtown can do.
Absolutely great question there to close out this fantastic webinar. And with that, this is all the time that we have for today. I hope all you guys learned as much as I did. Thanks to our sponsor, Boomtown. And I want to give a big special thank you to you, Daniel, and to you, Trey, for taking the time to give us such fantastic insights on building a great tech stack.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Alrighty, everyone. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your week and have a great day.